Here is an uncomfortable fact about money mistakes. They are not created equal, and their price tags have nothing to do with how they feel at the time. Two people can make the same size mistake in the same year for the same reasons. 10 years later, one of them has genuinely forgotten it ever happened. The other is still paying for it. In money, in options, in the way they flinch at their own bank app. Same mistake, completely different sentences. And the difference was never the size of the error, it was the type. Because some financial mistakes cost you once and close. Others enroll you in something ongoing, and the enrollment is the part nobody warns you about. So today, the anatomy of the mistakes that follow people. There are 3 types, and telling them apart changes how you handle every error you have ever made with money. The first type is loud and mostly harmless. The second compounds quietly, with machinery. And the third, the one we will end on, is the most expensive kind of mistake in all of personal finance, even though it never appears on any statement, because it is not really a mistake about money at all. Almost everyone watching is carrying at least one of them. Stay for that. First, the belief to challenge, because it is the reason the wrong mistakes get the attention. Most people carry their financial errors in one undifferentiated sack. The overpriced gadget, the failed venture, the debt from their 20s, the investment never started, all of it hauled together under one label. Things I got wrong, all generating the same flat shame. But shame is a terrible accountant. It weighs everything the same, which means it wildly overcharges you for the harmless mistakes and, strangely, undercharges the dangerous ones, because the dangerous ones are quiet. Sorting the sack is not self-indulgence. It is triage, and triage is where every recovery starts. I'm Theo, and if there is one mercy I have watched people grant themselves far too rarely, it is an end date for an old mistake. That is really what this video is, the sorting that makes end dates possible. 3 folders. Here is the first. Type 1, the contained mistake, the overpriced purchase, the gadget that disappointed, the trip that was not worth it, the dinner that was. These cost exactly once. The money left, the lesson arrived or did not, and the event closed itself. Here is the only thing worth saying about Type 1. It deserves almost none of your regret budget. Contained mistakes are tuition, and cheap tuition at that. If most of your errors live in this folder, you are doing fine, whatever your shame says. The problem is that Type 1 mistakes feel bad immediately, so they hog the attention, while the second type barely feels like anything at all. At first. Type 2, the compounding mistake. This is the folder with machinery in it. Expensive debt taken young is the classic, because borrowing at high cost is compounding running in reverse. The balance does not wait politely while life happens. It grows on itself, which means the original mistake is being remade. Mathematically, every month it stays unaddressed, without your participation. The too big commitment lives here too. The car or the home stretched far beyond the means that signed for it, because it recharges you every single month for years. What makes Type 2 dangerous is the timeline mismatch. The mistake took an afternoon. The machinery runs for a decade. People think they are haunted by a decision from years ago. Usually they are not. They are being billed, in the present tense, by machinery the decision switched on, and machinery, unlike the past, can be switched off. And Type 2 has an invisible member, the biggest one by far for many people. The mistake of nothing. The investing never started. The pension form never signed. The cushion never begun. It does not feel like a mistake because no event ever happened. There is no bad day to point at. But compounding is running in a parallel world where the form got signed, and the gap between that world and yours widens on the exact curve we covered in the video about progress speeding up. Mistakes of action cost what they cost. Mistakes of inaction compound, silently, with no statement ever arriving. That is why this one follows people for decades without them ever once feeling followed. There is also a plain, unglamorous reason some mistakes outlast the person who made them. Systems have memory. In many countries, lenders and institutions keep records of missed payments and defaults, and those records shape what you can borrow, rent, or sometimes even do for work, for years after the event. The rules differ everywhere, and in most systems the marks do eventually age out, which is worth checking for where you live. But the principle is universal. You update fast. Paperwork updates slowly. Part of why a mistake follows someone is simply that a filing system is holding a photograph of a person who no longer exists. Now, before the third folder, the multiplier that stretches all of them. Shame. Here is the pattern I have watched more times than any other in this subject. The mistake itself has a schedule. Debts have payoff math. Records have expiry rules. Even disasters have recovery arcs. But shame has no schedule. And shame's favorite move is aversion, the unopened letters, the unchecked balance, the conversation never had. And a mistake that cannot be looked at cannot be ended. Run the honest audit on people who were followed by an error for 15 years, and often the consequence itself only had 5 years of legs. The other 10 were avoidance. The sentence was extended by the refusal to read the paperwork, and that part, unlike the mistake, was optional the whole time. Which brings us to type 3, the most expensive mistake in personal finance. It is the conclusion. The story a person writes about themselves out of a type 1 or type 2 event, and then obeys for decades. One chaotic year at 25 becomes, I am just bad with money. One failed venture becomes, people like me should not take risks. One debt spiral becomes, I cannot be trusted with a card, with a plan, with a future. Do the accounting on this. The original event cost hundreds, maybe thousands, and it ended. The story vetoed every account never opened, every raise never negotiated, every plan never started, for 30 years. There is a video on this channel about the rules people follow without realizing it, and this is the darkest page of that rule book. The rule you wrote about yourself, with a mistake holding the pen. The event was the mistake. The story was the cost. So here is the shift, and it fits in one question you can point at any error in your past. Is this mistake closed, still running, or narrating? Closed means it cost once and is over, and it owes you nothing further, including regret. Still running means machinery, a balance growing, a record standing, a commitment charging monthly, and machinery is not a moral issue. It is an engineering issue, with an engineering answer. Find the numbers, make the plan, automate the payments, let the schedule replace the shame. And narrating means the mistake has become a story with your name in it. And stories are ended a different way, not with payments, but with contradiction. Small acts the story says you cannot do, done anyway, repeatedly, until the story runs out of evidence. And understand what that question really grants you. An end date. The reason a mistake follows someone for decades is almost never that decades of consequence were mandatory. It is that nobody ever converted the mistake into a finite object. A debt with a payoff plan is finite. A record with a known expiry is finite. A story confronted with contradicting evidence is finite. Unfaced, all three are infinite, because the imagination does not do math. The single most merciful thing you can do to an old mistake is force it to tell you exactly when it ends. So the work, and it is one page. First, the inventory. List your money mistakes, the real ones, and mark each one. Closed, running, or narrating. Then do the thing the SAC never allowed. Cross the closed ones out, physically, because they are paid in full, and carrying them costs attention you need for the other two columns. Most people discover the SAC was 2/3 closed items and feel lighter before anything else has even happened. Second, take one running mistake and get its numbers, this week. The real balance, the real cost, and, crucially, the end date. What does it take, per month, for this to be over by a date you choose? You do not have to love the answer. You just have to have one. Because a mistake with an end date stops being a shadow and becomes a project, and people finish projects every day. Third, if you found a narrating mistake, split its bill. Write what the event actually cost, and beside it, what the story has been charging you since the accounts never opened, the plans never started. Seeing those two columns separately is the beginning of the end of the story. Then give the story one piece of contradicting evidence, small and concrete. The account opened, the balance read calmly, the plan begun. If this video just handed an end date to something that has been following you, that is genuinely the best thing these modules ever get to do, and subscribing keeps them coming. And if you are willing, tell me in the comments just the column, closed, running, or narrating, whichever one you found the most of. No details needed. The pattern in the replies will say enough. Before you go, hold on to this. The people who seem untouched by their old mistakes were never the ones who avoided making them. Ask anyone with gray hair and a calm financial life. There is a crossed-out page in their story too. The difference is only ever this. Somewhere along the way, they sorted the sack, switched off the machinery they could, waited out the records, and refused to let one bad chapter write the whole book. The mistake was real. The following was negotiable, so sort yours. Cross out the closed, schedule the running, contradict the narrating. A mistake only follows a person for decades when nobody ever asks it for its end date. And starting this week, yours are all going to be asked. Progress beats perfection, and it forgives faster too. I'll see you in the next module.